Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Heidi Hahn, and I'm a rising junior in environmental policy and planning at Virginia Tech. So I first want to start out by thanking the center for having us. We really appreciate it and thought that our presentation aligned with your mission of environmentalism. I also want to thank our three presenters for today. I want to say you all have made a very large impact on my life in terms of my environmental background. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first presenter. Uncle Greg is what I call him, because in Hawaiian culture, you call your elders auntie or uncle. He lives on the Big Island of Hawaii with his 3 kids, wife, and their adorable bunny Marshmallow. He is the executive director of Hawaii Outdoors Institute, which is an outdoor education program for teenagers. The mission of Hawaii Outdoors Institute is to inspire environmental stewardship in the world's future leaders. So Greg will be talking about his successes, challenges, and lessons learned that will come while fulfilling their mission. So thank you so much, Greg, and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Heidi. Aloha, everyone. My name's Greg. I'm, like Heidi said, I'm the director of Hawaii Outdoors Institute. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am really happy to speak about our mission today. What we do is very near and dear to my heart. It helps me feel like I'm living life to the fullest. So I'm very happy to be able to explain that. I'll also touch on some of the things that we have learned along the way at HOI while working with teenagers in the outdoors. So our mission at Hawaii Outdoors Institute is to inspire environmental stewardship in the world's future leaders. We work with very bright and highly motivated high school students, and Heidi just so happened to be one of those bright and motivated high school students a few years ago. We were so happy to have her. Our goal is to connect kids with nature. And being as bright and as motivated as they are, our belief is that whenever they find themselves in positions of leadership in the future, they will make decisions that have a positive impact on our environment and our community. As a program, I feel like that is our greatest contribution to the world. And next slide. So we have 2 main programs that we do. We're a nonprofit organization, so we work with school groups. That's our first program, and then we do a Summit to Sea environmental science course in the summertime, and that's for individual students coming from all over the place. So with our school groups, they travel to our base camp in Hawaii. They usually stay with us for about a week. They use it as a bonding experience or a capstone trip. And with these school groups and our program in general, we have 4 main focus areas as part of our curriculum. And those focus areas are education, culture, service, and leadership. And next slide. So the first is education. Our classroom is the outdoors. And on the Big Island, we are very fortunate. We have 11 of the world's 13 different climate zones here on just our island alone. Our island is about the size of Connecticut. So it's like we have the entire world at our fingertips, and it's like a living laboratory here. The only thing we don't have is frozen tundra, and we don't have the most extreme harsh desert here on our island, and we don't want those anyway. That's okay. So next slide. Our second focus area is culture, and we want our students to know that Hawaii is a lot more than just a place where people go on vacation. The culture here is very profound. It's really significant. Everything has a deeper meaning. It's a place where you can spend a lifetime learning about it. So we don't take our students to the normal touristy things, but we do things that are a lot more authentic, like working with local farmers or learning hula from a kupuna or a Hawaiian elder. And next slide. So our third focus area is leadership. We make it a very hands-on program for our students. It's student run. We take a back seat for the most part and let the students run the show. So everyone has a job to do each day, whether it's being our ali'i, which is the chief who leads the group, or the students cook, they clean. We have lessons that we've developed that the students study based on whatever it is we're doing, and they give those lessons to the group at a nightly meeting that we have. So working together in a small community like this, it becomes a very tight-knit group very quickly, and our students end up making friends and contacts for life from these programs. And next slide. Our fourth focus area is service. My personal goal as the director is to make Hawaii a better place through our program. And we hope that translates to our students learning to make their own home a better place wherever they live and whatever they end up doing. So on our courses, we do a lot of ecosystem restoration at different nature preserves here on the island. For example, we help restore critical habitat for the last 2,000 palila birds in existence, which are found only in a small part of our island on the slopes of Mauna Kea. And they're found nowhere else in the world. We also help grow and preserve willy-willy trees. And willy-willy trees they're down to about the last 50 on the earth, and they're only found on the Big Island. So it's really important work that our students are able to do. And as they're doing this work, they work alongside field scientists at these preserves that they manage. And our students have the opportunity to consider what they do as a future career. And next slide. Our next program is called the Summit to Sea Environmental Science course. And this course, this is the one that Heidi did a few years ago. We really consider this the pinnacle of our program. It's 3 weeks long in the summertime. And the central theme of this course is how do we prosper while living in harmony with our environment? And the course is based on something called the Ahupua'a system that the ancient Hawaiians lived by. That's the inspiration for the course. And with the Ahupua'a system in the old days, it was the way that Hawaiians used their ecosystems to the fullest extent. And the island was divided into pie-shaped sections. So you can see the top right corner, that picture. Here on the island, extended families would live within these ecosystems, and families at high elevations there were hardwood trees, so they would take these trees and use them to build canoes or tools. The families at mid elevations, they would farm fruits and vegetables, they would raise livestock, and the families at the ocean, they would fish. And so all of these extended families with all these different resources would trade, and their needs were met in a very sustainable way. And they prospered with a minimal effort. And so with that minimal effort, the ancient Hawaiians had a lot of extra time to develop the arts. So that's where things like hula and surfing, etc., were able to be developed. So they lived in a very sustainable way. They prospered while living in harmony with their environment. And that's our goal with this course. How can we prosper while living in harmony with our environment? And we get to see how our lives are interconnected with the ecosystems where we live. And next slide. This course, it takes a really deep dive into the educational aspects. So we do water testing labs. And next slide. We do a phenology project where we monitor the blooms of trees and the seasons of trees. And all that data goes to a national database, and it's collected by scientists, and it helps them monitor and track climate change. So what we do, we hope we make a positive impact for the world through this program. Next slide. And at the end of this program, our students research their own project, that they take what they've learned from us and they apply it to their home communities. And this goes beyond service. We want to give students the tools that are necessary to start solving real world problems and be part of the solution. For example, our dear Heidi Hahn, she researched a project on solar energy. She learned all about it, and if you could go to the next slide. These were some of her goals. So she researched a plan to install solar panels at her own home, and then she's gone on to even bigger and better things after that. So she has she's one of our all-stars that we're very proud of. On a personal note, I have a 4-year-old son, and he is just now getting into the phase where he wants to do everything on his own by himself. And I've learned that teenagers are the exact same. They don't lose that desire. Sometimes it's just harder to find in teenagers. And they need to be given opportunities for them to do these things on their own, and then they'll take it and run with it, just like a 4-year-old. It's an amazing thing. And next slide.
Hold, please. I will get you back.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. All
right. Perfect. And so we've been doing this since 2009. We started from scratch with nothing. We've had lots of successes, lots of failures also. We've learned a lot along the way. So what have we learned? One of the things, if you could go to the next slide, one of the things we've learned is one of the most effective ways to teach about the environment is to make the unseen seen. And so, for example, when we use like a plastic water bottle, any kind of single-use plastic, and we dispose of it in some way, either in the trash or a recycling bin, we don't really know where it goes. We just hope for the best. And so that's something that's unseen. So we take our students to a place in the middle of nowhere called Camilo Beach. And at this certain beach, you can see it in the slide, there are no people anywhere for miles and miles. And yet, every single day, there is marine debris that washes up on shore. And this day, as you can see in the picture, this is just a normal day. We do a massive beach cleanup, and then the next day, more plastic washes ashore. And the plastic has been in the ocean for years and years. So that's when we see that, oh, maybe this is where our plastic is going. And it's a very profound and sobering effect. So we make the unseen seen. And next slide. The next thing that we've learned is, I love this quote, what they know and love, they will protect. What they do not, they will lose. So for me, growing up with exposure to nature was absolutely critical. My mom read me Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn when I was a kid, and they were my heroes. Our goal is to pass on that love of nature and the outdoors to today's youth. Because if they love it, if they're connected to it, they will protect it. And next slide. The next thing we've learned is that the environmental challenges that our world faces today, they are many, and they are extremely complicated. It's really easy to become overwhelmed and feel hopeless. It happens to me all the time. One thing that I have learned is we are not experts at sustainability, and we're not perfect when it comes to sustainable living. But every effort matters. So what we do at HOI is we try to promote empowered students by focusing on what we can do to improve our communities, our ecosystems, and we trust that our students can be a leading part of that solution. So this program is my way of contributing just a little thing, and hopefully all of our students contribute their little thing. And our efforts combined end up making a big difference. And the next slide, please. I wanted to finish with a quote by the wise Heidi Hahn. In her last email to me, she finished by saying, "Let's create some more environmentalists in this world together." And yes, let's do it. I really believe that with people like her leading the way, our future is bright. So keep up the good work, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Uncle Greg. That was really an incredible presentation. I also want to touch on the picture that he was talking about at Plastic Beach. That we went there when I went to camp there, and it looks like such a small section. But really, beach, it's just like a regular beach. It's far and vast on either side, and it's like every little grain, it looks like sand, but it's multicolored tiny pieces of plastic. So it was a really eye-opening thing to see, and it makes you wonder how much else is out there that we need to improve on. So tying into that, next we have my econ professor from Virginia Tech, Mike Ellerbrock. He works for the Department of Agriculture and Applied Economics, and he will be discussing why pollution is unequal for minorities. And I just want to say I've loved Mike's class so much. He's such an incredible professor. So take it away, Mike.
Hi, folks. And Greg, that was really awesome. That gives me hope, Greg. Folks, be aware that in a lot of countries now there is a movement going on called the EJ movement, Environmental Justice Movement. What is that about? What it's about is the reality, the sad reality that at all levels of income, Black and brown citizens are disproportionately exposed to environmental hazards. Poor communities and minority communities are disproportionately, relative to their population, disproportionately exposed to environmental hazards, including environmental pollution. For example, whereas brown citizens are exposed to 163% of the amount of pollution that they actually generate, and Black citizens are exposed to 156% of the pollution their cars, their homes, their factories generate. For white citizens, that figure is less than 100%. No surprise, it's 83%. In other words, when you look at culturally and racially, ethnically, how much pollution groups produce and how much they are exposed to by where they live, work, and play, you can see a significant imbalance. White citizens are much more, in general, are much more able to avoid being exposed to pollution, even the pollution that they produce by their own consumption patterns and by where they work. Another example of environmental justice movement. When I first got involved in this at the national level, I just finished 2 terms under the Obama administration, appointed to EPA's National Environmental Justice Advisory Council, 6 years. We hold public hearings around the country in places in the United States where there have been major pollution incidents. And we, in those public hearings, we hear from victims, literally, people affected by pollution incidents, in particular, oftentimes poor and minority citizens. And I'm also involved at the state level. I'm on Governor Northam's second term, serving Governor McAuliffe and Governor Northam on the Virginia Environmental Justice Advisory Council. And we hold public hearings in different places in Virginia where there are pollution problems, particularly regarding the proposed pipelines and the giant compressor station scheduled to be built right in the middle of a predominantly African-American community of formerly enslaved citizens in Buckingham County, the Union Hill community. The environmental justice movement is concerned about the equity, the fairness, the morality of who gets exposed to environmental hazards in America. What happens to miscarriages, birth defects, asthma rates, skin diseases, eye irritations, lung problems. The list goes on and on about what happens to many lower income and minority communities due to pollution. Well, a cop-out that a lot of people will immediately offer who don't want to hear the reality, deniers, you can call them deniers. One of the cop-outs you'll frequently hear is they'll say, oh, it's not a matter of ethics. It's not a matter of politics. It's pure economics. If you don't like where you live, work, or play, then vote with your feet. That's what they'll always say. Vote with your feet. Just pack up and move to a better place to live. Well, folks, that can be a rather cruel attitude. What did we learn from Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans? We learned a lot of things. One thing we learned was there are a lot of Black and brown and poor citizens in New Orleans and other places who lack the social capacity to get out of town for a week in the face of a Category 5 hurricane heading straight for them with a week or two's advance notice. And many of those people still did not have the social capacity, the aunts, the uncles, the friends, the colleagues in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Kansas, wherever else, to let them come live with them for a week or two to survive, right? If you can't get out of town for a week to avoid a Category 5 hurricane, then how fair is it for someone to say to you, well, if you don't like living in a bowl in New Orleans below sea level, then well, just go back to school, get a better education, get a better job, move to Colorado, live in Denver, live in Atlanta, Charlotte, somewhere else. That's a harsh reality to lay on people. One of the main turning points that converted me to the cause was when I learned from the data, dumping in Dixie, Robert Bullard and that group, when I learned that the data show that at all levels of income, Black and brown citizens are disproportionately exposed to environmental hazards. Now, what does that mean? I think that's significant. What it means is not just for poor, low-income people, but at all levels of income, poor and minority people, Black and brown citizens, are disproportionately exposed, even if they have the financial wherewithal to move and live in a better place. In other words, amongst America's wealthy class, your wealthy Black and brown doctors, dentists, lawyers, etc., are still, even at that level of income, disproportionately exposed to environmental hazards relative to wealthy white Americans. So clearly, there's more at play here than just economics. There's a racial, ethnic element to who gets exposed to environmental hazards in America. Let me pause right there and see if anybody has any questions or comments. I can share horror stories with you if you want.
I have one comment. I'm Libba Williams and I'm from Charlottesville. And I've been working on the Mapping Seaville project, where they are going through and looking at all the deeds of all of the African-American properties and bringing out the racial covenants. And what they're saying is the property shall not be occupied by anyone not of the Caucasian race, except if a domestic servant. So that's number one, is people not of the Caucasian race could not buy any nice properties in Charlottesville. And the second thing is that the city did not provide water and sewer to the properties that were owned by African Americans. So their properties did not increase in value. So most people say, well, you buy your home and then you can sell it for more, it's an investment. But in the case of anybody of color, their properties were kept at a very low property value because they didn't have any piped water and sewer. And that was the city making the decision to do that. And there are many, many, many other examples, but that is crazy.
Thank you, Lib. Absolutely right. Here, I'll share a story with you that'll make you happy too. That giant compressor station that's going to be built by Dominion Power right in the middle of Buckingham County. It's a giant compressor. It's going to push natural gas 50 miles downstream, down the pipeline. Most pipelines push gas 20 miles. That shows you how big and powerful this compressor station is going to be. And yet, within 2 miles of that compressor station, which if it ever have a explosion, it would be enormous. Within 2 miles of that compressor station, there are 99 households, 85 of whom are African American. 85 out of 99 neighbors are Black citizens. There are also numerous marked and unmarked graves of formerly enslaved citizens. This is Buckingham County, right in the middle of Virginia. Now, guess what? At the end of the Civil War, when Lincoln emancipated the slaves, right then, the white citizens of Buckingham County went downtown and burned to the ground their courthouse, the Buckingham County Courthouse. Now, why would white citizens right at the end of the Civil War burn the courthouse to the ground? For exactly what you just said, Liva, to remove any records of how much land had been stolen from Black citizens in America. Any other quick thoughts, or I'll share one more horror story with you. Lots of people in America in poor minority neighborhoods are located adjacent to brownfield sites. We visited Minneapolis. Speaking of Minneapolis and racial problems, oh my gosh, right? In Minneapolis, I-94 goes right through town. On one side of the freeway is a brownfield. On the other side, there is not. On the white side, a wealthy white neighborhood on one side. On the side with the brownfield, abandoned industrial site, is primarily a minority community. You know what the difference is? Across the freeway from each other in life expectancy, 17 years. I-5 goes right through San Diego. Every day, 43,000 trucks, semi-trucks, 43,000 semi-trucks go up and down I-5 through San Diego, California, through a predominantly Hispanic community. The asthma rates, the miscarriage rates are off the charts because of all those schools and playgrounds and soccer fields and homes that close to that many trucks. Let me stop there. I'm really honored to be on this planet with you folks, and y'all are inspiring me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you talking. And I just want to make a connection between Mike's conversation and Greg's conversation and say how, although sometimes environmental situations can be really tough, it's really important to know that if we do teach our youth about all this, then we can really turn things around. So I think that's really important, what both of you are discussing. So our last presentation is with Kelvin Dale, who is my uncle, and he lives on Maui, the island of Maui, Hawaii. And he is the Director of Revenue Management at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua, which I have as my background right here. And he is also a scuba diving instructor. So I will also be giving a part of the presentation with him.
So I have the pleasure of introducing you to the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua, which is where I work every day. And it's such a special place for me. I've actually moved to Hawaii 13 years ago. And prior to that, I had lived in Washington, D.C., New York City, and mostly grew up in Virginia, in Charlottesville. So it's such a pleasure to come to this location every day. And as you can see, we are right in front of the ocean, one of the most beautiful spots on the island of Maui, actually. So the hotel opened in 1991 and is connected with the Ritz-Carlton brand, which, as you know, it's a combination of two hotel brands, which is Ritz and the Carlton Hotels. And the first Ritz-Carlton Hotel was developed in the city of Boston, Massachusetts. And then the actual company of Ritz-Carlton was created in 1981 in Georgia, and has developed into a worldwide 5-star, 5-diamond hotel group that is actually owned by the Marriott Corporation fully. So we work under that umbrella, and we are the top property of their hotel. Actually, Bill Marriott bought the Ritz-Carlton brand because he realized he wasn't able to create a luxury brand on his own and use the expertise of the Ritz-Carlton to help inspire other brands that they were going to connect with. So, as I said, we're located on the island of Maui, Hawaii. Hawaii has 7 inhabited islands. The 8th island is Kaho'olawe, which is just off of Maui and is considered part of Maui County. And then the 9th island actually is Las Vegas, Nevada, because a lot of our citizens like to vacation in Las Vegas. So there's a big connection there. But we are located on the Kapalua Resort in Maui, which is in the upper northwest corner of the island. The Kapalua Resort is 22,000 acres and stretches from a height of 5,500 feet at the top of Pu'ukukui mountain, which is actually the end of a shield volcano, and all the way down to the sea. And the importance of the mountain to us is, from an environmental standpoint, is really critical, and we are stewards of that area. 8,600 acres up on the mountain are one of the wettest spots on Earth. We get over 300 inches of rainfall a year, and the area has the most endemic creatures within Hawaii. These are creatures that aren't found anywhere else in the world. That includes trees, insects, birds, and they're always finding new creatures, the scientists who go up there. It's very limited access, really, just to scientists, and we consider it, part of our responsibility to take care of. The Ritz-Carlton Resort here was developed in 1992. Originally, it had been slated to be built closer to the ocean, and when they started construction, they discovered that it was going to be on top of a Hawaiian burial ground, and this caused quite a bit of concern within the Native Hawaiian community, and the Ritz-Carlton brand committed to moving the property back off of the ocean. And now we protect that entire burial ground right in front of the resort which we completely limit access to really for ceremonial occasions. And there are thousands of Hawaiian bones that are buried at the ocean's edge right in front of the resort. So it's marked by a hedge that protects that area. A couple of pillars of our existence here on Maui is we use a motto of aloha by nature. So we like to protect our land, and we celebrate that by having using our responsibility for that. We do road cleanups, beach cleanups, and educate our guests on environmental protection. We also do culture as culture and art really all put together, because we actually have a celebration of the arts that happens once a year. That is Hawaii's premier Hawaiian cultural event. And we have a cultural advisor on property, Clifford Naioli, who organizes that event and brings people from all of the islands just to celebrate and help people learn more about the Hawaiian culture and meet the actual leaders within the communities of all the islands to help perpetuate that culture. And then, of course, experiences. We have, through our whale watches and events connected to the Jean-Michel Cousteau Ambassadors of the Environment Program, we like to give guests actual hands-on feel about what it's like to be a steward of the land, and hopefully they'll take that back to their homes with them, and it'll stay with them in that way. We also have a big community commitment, and we've shown this, especially during this difficult time. We just did a food giveaway for our employees, even though our resort is closed right now, due to the COVID-19 crisis. We did a food giveaway to our 600 employees, and all of them brought food to give back to the food bank in Maui, which just kind of is a way they don't just take, they want to also give. And that is really the aloha spirit that lives here with our employees and with the culture that we have developed. Our property is we have 466 guest rooms. Over 100 of those are suites on the property. And you can see in the picture our beautiful swimming pool with 3 sections with cabanas. And then we have a pathway that goes down to a beach. And we also have walking trails, hiking trails, and ways to get in touch with nature. And it's so spread out that you can actually be alone and get in touch with yourself in a peaceful location. So it's really a wonderful place to come. I hope you get to experience it one day. Next slide, please. And I'll turn it over to Heidi to explain about her experiences with the Ambassadors of the Environment.
Okay, so I will be highlighting on the Ambassadors of the Environment Program. The Ambassadors of the Environment Program was created and founded by Jean-Michel Cousteau. His father was Jacques Cousteau, as many of you may have heard of the name before, and he's the pioneer of scuba diving. So Jean-Michel Cousteau started this program because he grew up with ocean and marine conservation all around him. So he wanted to leave a legacy and leave all the guests at the Ritz-Carlton properties that have the Ambassadors of the Environment with an appreciation and respect for nature. So there's a big difference between going on vacation and just enjoying the beach, relaxing, but then when you really dive deep and learn about the environment around you, you take a lot more from the vacation that you go on. So the Ambassadors of the Environment is an opportunity for people of all ages to have fun as they learn, as they explore the wonders of nature and experience how the natural world works. We discover lessons from nature and culture and find alternatives for a sustainable future. We want people to fall in love with nature because people protect what they love. So as I said, I work as one of the naturalists for the program. And one of my favorite parts is working with the children because they just get so excited and they want to tell everyone around them what they learned at our programs. And my hope is that they go home and teach their friends and get really engaged in school with the program. So the more young people take an interest in the environment, the greater hope we have that future generations will protect the world's natural resources. Not every participant will grow up to be a scientist, but wouldn't it be wonderful if they all became protectors of the environment and a sustainable future? At the program, we believe that if you protect the environment, you protect yourself. And that was one of the quotes from Jean-Michel Cousteau. It is important to recognize that everything is connected in nature. So the impacts that we have here, for those of us that live in Charlottesville, Virginia, tie back to the large global system. So depending on the type of fish we eat, that depends on if there's overfishing in these areas, and they make an impact on us and we make an impact on them. So next slide, please. So the goals for the program are to demonstrate the wonder of nature, to develop knowledge of and respect for the environment, to show how people depend on and impact the natural environment, to inspire everyone to protect natural resources and live in an environmentally responsible manner, and finally, to empower people with the knowledge and resources to become an ambassador of the environment in their communities, advocating and promoting sustainable living. So that's something that all of us can do. We can become our own ambassadors of the environment, and that just means learning about the environment around you, sharing it with others, and then actually practicing that lifestyle. So learning how you can be more committed to sustainable practices. So it's important for people to protect our environment because the environment gives back to us. While coral reefs only cover about 0.0025% of the oceanic floor, they generate half of the Earth's oxygen and absorb nearly 1/3 of the carbon dioxide generated from burning fossil fuels. So that makes us think, what impact are we having, and what choices are we making to protect the coral reefs? So next slide, please. So we have a bunch of different programs. There's family programs and then kids programs. I'll first highlight the kids programs. So most of them are just really fun, get kids out in nature hands-on, such as for the marine debris program, we do a trash pickup with the kids down by the beach, which is depicted in the photo right there. And then we go back to the hale, which means house, and we create art so they can see that you can reuse even things that you would think you would just throw away. So most of the programs are educational. And then for the family programs, we do seasonal whale watching when the whales are there in the winter season, and then snorkeling and hiking. For the snorkeling programs, those are my favorites because we teach them about coral reefs and then what they can do to help the environment. The coral reef community is a sustainable community where there is balance among a great variety of species, each doing their job to stay alive and contribute to the community welfare. So that's something that we practice in our everyday lives. We try and contribute to the community. And if you think about it, the coral reefs are also a part of our personal community. So this happens without any effort or design. It's simply what results when things are left up to nature. And then humans are a part of the coral reef ecosystem as we use it for food, protection of shorelines, ingredients for medicines, learning from science, and it helps many communities' economies. So we are all on this planet together. So from this presentation, I'm asking that you connect with one person and enlighten them about something you've done environmental research on. So next up, I want to turn it over to Kelvin to talk about scuba diving.
All right, let's move to the next slide, please. So that's, of course, a photo of Heidi scuba diving, taking a picture of a green sea turtle here on Maui. And That's one of her favorite things to see and to interact with when she's out here. She always wants to see the turtles. But what is scuba diving? I consider scuba diving a lifestyle. It actually takes over quite a bit of my life. The actual scuba tank was created in 1942 by Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnon in German-occupied France. However, they didn't actually start producing them until after the war, when they got a patent for it. And they weren't, you know, it was they were part of the resistance within the French arena, but they still were able to do the science for this. So that's great, because scuba diving for me and for anyone who participates can provide the opportunity for enhanced education. You continue to learn. Every time I go out, I learn something about the environment. There's also different courses that you can take within scuba diving. You can learn physics. You can learn about the environment. You can learn about nature and about water pressure. Whatever your interest is, there's something in scuba diving for you. Also exploration. That includes, you know, travel. Some of my favorite places that I've been, besides Hawaii, are Thailand. I love Cozumel for its diving experiences, and Panama as well are three of my favorite places that I've been. And of course, community involvement. Like where I live, the diving shop that I go to and have worked at, they are a community. People come in, everybody knows their name, you know, they know what they want, and they like to share what they've seen, ask questions, and they, you know, there's ways to get involved digitally or stay in touch. They send out newsletters and things like that. So, and then conservation, of course, learning ways to protect the environment. One of the courses that I teach is called Dive Against Debris. And that's teaching people the proper way to go out, help clean up any debris that's in your reef. One of the programs that they have is they like to provide an opportunity to adopt a reef and take care of it and make sure that it continues to grow without a lot of debris on it. And scuba diving is for all ages. I know that my dad scuba dives still and is 89 now. So I can't wait to get him back out here to Hawaii to scuba dive. And it requires some fitness, some swimming ability, and certification. Once you get certified, it lasts forever. And so it's something that I wanted to make sure that Heidi and her brothers got certified very early. And Heidi's already taken it to the level of rescue diver. And hopefully, as soon as I can get her back out here again, she'll go into the professional level, dive master and beyond. So hopefully that will be a part of her life forever. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk briefly about the human effects on our oceans. One of my favorite environmentalists in the world is Dr. Sylvia Earle. She runs a program called Mission Blue, and she's quoted as saying the next 5 years may be the most important in the next 10,000 for our planet. There are plenty of reasons for hope, yet every day doors of opportunity close. We know what to do, now is the time to act. And any little thing that you can do can really help the ocean. Some of the statistics on this slide that talks about ocean health, seas under siege. Less than 4% of the ocean is listed as protected. By 2025, more than 250 million tons of plastic are estimated to make its way into the ocean. And by 2025, the ratio of plastic to fish in the ocean is expected to be 1 in 3. And 90% of our coral reefs are definitely in danger. And 22 million tons of CO2 is absorbed by the ocean every day. Ocean acidity has increased 30% from carbon pollution. And some of the things that you can do are scale up marine protected areas and use reusable items that minimize the plastic waste. Those are, supporting anything that will not allow more plastic to get into the ocean is very critical right now. Some of the big things affecting the oceans right now are from human impacts are overpopulation, pollution, burning fossil fuels, and deforestation. The results create conditions unfavorable to some marine organisms, changing the composition of the ecosystem and driving animals to different parts of the ocean, even causing some species to begin dying off. So a lot of the worst conditions are inshore, close to where people live in big populated areas. So that's where you actually want to have some of the healthier oceans, and there are now some areas that are dead zones where there's no life. In the United States alone, about 1 in 6 jobs has something to do with the ocean, and many of them come with dire consequences for the ecosystem. So I encourage everyone to learn more about activities of groups like the Ocean Future Society, which is run by Jean-Michel Cousteau, and Mission Blue, which is Sylvia Earle's organization, to see what positive steps you can take to reverse these trends. There's a movie on Netflix, if you haven't seen it, called Mission Blue, which is Sylvia Earle's movie. So maybe that could be your homework for this evening. Look out, research and watch the Netflix movie. It's really enlightening. The next slide, please. And I'll leave you with a Hawaiian reef manta ray. So the Hawaiian name is Hahalua, which means 2 breaths. As we were talking about Kapalua, the name means 2 borders. And reef mantas do not have a stinger. They're related to sharks but have no teeth. They feed only on plankton. And so within their name, the H-A, is also part of the word aloha, which means the breath of life. And I just like to say aloha to everyone and enjoy our manta ray swimming through the coast of Maui.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Let's see, what time is it? We have we could take a couple questions.
Yeah, and I just want to say that was a fabulous trilogy of information. Thank you very much. And that quote, "We know what to do, now's the time to act," seems apropos for everything we heard. So thank you very much. If there's anyone that needs to go, I totally understand. But if you're willing to stay, we'll stay open as long as you like.
And thank you so much, everyone, for presenting and watching. I really appreciate it.
Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. You do a wonderful job. It was very informative.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Great.
I think that we should have a trip to Hawaii. You better talk to Linda about it.
That sounds like a good idea.
Sounds good.
I was going to say, excuse me, thank you all very much, but I wanted
Hey, Libba, go ahead, Libba. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that if you don't have the wherewithal to travel to Hawaii, that there's a place called Nature Camp in Vesuvius, Virginia, which teaches many of these things. And my daughter is on the board, but she also went there and then was a counselor. So she spent like 10 years there. And it was like the best thing that she could do. You know, she'd start counting down. It's a 2-week program for 5th grade through 12th grade. And they teach you just all about nature. And you're very much aware. So if you have any grandchildren or children that are that age, it's a wonderful place. Unfortunately, it's closed this summer because of the pandemic, but hopefully next year it will be opened up again. But it's called Nature Camp, and it teaches many of the same thing. And then I did have one more comment, and that was with this pandemic, you know, everything is carry out. And I'm finding that, you know, we go to restaurants and we pick things up, but it's like you get these plastic containers. And unfortunately, Charlottesville only recycles 1 and 2 now at the recycling center where we go. And it's so frustrating because I keep saying, well, I'll save it and reuse it. But unfortunately, I have more than I can use. So I don't know what the solution to that. Some of the places, and we will go back to them, have compostable stuff, which is great. But there are a lot of them that don't as well. So, but anyway, it's a problem.
And my response to that is just trying to limit the amount you eat out, but also still trying to support local restaurants. And sometimes, like if I order online, there'll be, do you have any comments that you'd like to let us know? And I always write like, try and reduce the single-use plastic. And then try and go zero waste in any other way you can.
And do support those restaurants that do use the compostable packaging instead of the single-use packaging.
Thank you.
I'll say this